Hello, everyone. It's a sunny day in Pittsburgh. How unusual. So I felt like hopping on and chatting. What is happening on my computer? There we go. Wanted to hop on and chat a little bit with you guys about how to kind of loosen up and actually get your writing going because everybody thinks that there are so many rules to writing that a lot of times that just kind of stops the flow. Um, we most of us went through high school English classes. It might be different in other countries, but here in the United States, a lot of us are required to take like 4 years of English, and a lot of it in high school is very like rules driven. But a lot of that is just to give you that basic structure. And I don't think everyone understands that. It's not like, you know, this is the absolute only way that you can possibly write. It has to have 5 paragraphs per chapter and 5 sentences per paragraph. There will not be more than 25 sentences in a chapter. Like, it's not like that. There's a lot of flexibility there. And one of the fun examples I like to give people is think of it like if you're an artist and you're told that you need to create art. Um, People kind of freak out when they're told like, "Hey, walk in a room and create art." They might grab a bucket of paint and just kind of Jackson Pollock the whole thing, or they might just go over to a corner and be like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to paint this picture of a cat, and that's going to be my thing." That's one way of handling it. Or um, they feel like writing is the same way. It's like you have absolutely no structure, no idea what you're doing, or you have this tight structure that we were given in high school in our writing courses that was really meant to just be something to build on. So they feel like they're told, like, here is a paintbrush. It is this skinny little paintbrush, and you're only allowed to use primary colors, and you are only allowed to paint in this quadrant, and you're only allowed to use acrylic paints, and you're not allowed to have glitter, and you're not allowed to use pink. And it's not like that at all. So what I want you to picture instead is writers are, you know, comparing to painters again. Um, it's like handing an artist a canvas and saying, here you go. It's 8 by 12, and you have all the paints you want to use. You have all the paintbrushes you want to use. You have palette knives, you have glitter and sequins, and if you wanted to glue fabric on, you can. It can be, 3 dimensional. You can stick something else on it. You can use popsicle sticks and macaroni, whatever you want to do, but here's the canvas. So it's really like having a structure, a place to have it, and then all this creative ability on top of that. So please breathe a sigh of relief, because I work with people who are super, super creative and would love to Jackson Pollock things. And I also work with people who are very highly structured, very organized, project manager sort of people who love to have that very specific rule set. It's the best of both worlds when you're doing your writing. You have some structure and you have some flexibility, and you can move within that and take whatever you want with it. So I did want to talk, I know that was a big example. That was a long one, but I want to talk about some of these rules that people think that we have when we're writing, and how you can kind of loosen up around them and understand them from a writer's perspective. Because I'm not only a coach, I'm also a writer. I'm a best-selling author. I've written 8 books, and I have a ninth one that's coming out. It's a partnership book, so it's me and 20 other women working on this one together. Yes, I'm a writer, I'm a coach, and I know how to look at it from that perspective. So I wanted to start with this idea that you have to use everything you write. Um, some people get locked into this mindset, and it's not even something that they're conscious of, where they feel like if they sit down at their computer, they are going to be using every single thing they write. Or if they've committed to, oh, I'm going to use my journal, I'm going to take pieces out of the journal and use that for my book, for the next chapter or whatever. They feel like they have to use every single thing in that journal. You did not sign a contract in blood saying that every word that appears on that page is going to appear in your book. Okay. And if someone asks you to do that, don't do it. It's a bad idea. Um, you don't have to use everything you've written. You can write a whole chapter and then just delete it because it's pixels, or rip the page out and put it in the recycling bin, please and thank you, because we're being green. You don't have to use it all. Really, you can pull it out, you can put more stuff in, you can change things around, you can have some flexibility around it. I give people permission all the time to write a messy first draft. Think of it that way. Get something down. If you sit down and you have, let's say you had 2 hours on Saturday morning and you're like, man, I just feel like writing. And you sit down and you're writing and you're, putting out all your stuff. And then you come back on Sunday and look at it and you go, really don't like that example I gave. You can think about it. You can highlight that paragraph or whatever, or you can delete it. You don't have to commit to it. Really, this isn't like an 1800s marriage. You do not have to keep everything that you started out thinking you were going to keep. So that's rule number one. And if you have a stack of journals and you're going through them, you can just say, hey, this whole journal was really good and it served me when I wrote it, but I'm only going to use, the entry from this specific date. That's all I really need. That's all my reader needs, because this isn't about you, it's about the reader. You don't have to use all of it. So that's the first one. That rule, throw it out the window. You don't have to use it all. The second one I wanted to talk about was writing your book in order. I was just talking to one of my clients today about this. We were kind of doing an outline for his book, and something came up where I was like, I feel compelled to say this. You don't have to write your book in order. You don't have to sit down. Please don't do this. Do not sit down and write out your introduction before you've written the rest of the book. Because if you do that, you have set yourself up to some sort of a commitment in this introduction, because the introduction is telling a reader a little bit about what to expect. You don't want to say, hey, this is what to expect in this book, and then completely not give them that in the rest of the book. Your introduction is supposed to be kind of a capsule of the book. So you don't need to write that first. In fact, I encourage you not to write it first. I encourage you to wait until later. Wait until you've got at least half that book written, if not the entire book, before you come in and write the intro, because you want the intro to really speak to what's in the rest of the book. So don't write your book in order. And if like I just spoke with a client today. So let's say that when I was talking to him, I really got some good information for chapter 6 in my book. But I'm only on chapter 2. I need to be writing chapter 2 next. That's not the case. I can take that information and go, I am inspired to write chapter 6 today. And I can jump in and write chapter 6 and know that that's okay. And I'm going to come back and write chapter 2 tomorrow or whenever my next writing session is. You don't have to write your book linearly. Have the whole thing planned out. Absolutely plan it out. But don't worry about locking yourself into first you do this, and then you do this, and then you do that. If you need to clean your whole house, you don't have to start with the guest bathroom. You can start with the playroom or the basement or the garage or the attic or, making your bed, whatever it is. It's the same kind of thing. So think of it that way. Um, Number 3, you don't need to have a whole day to write your book. You don't need hours to write. You need a manageable piece, a manageable bite. Um, you know, I think we get this idea in our heads because a standard workday is 8 hours long. You don't need a big chunk of time to write. In fact, I think you'll find it a lot better if you have a smaller chunk of time to write. Because when you sit down at your desk and you want to get something creative out of your head, um, you just need to get it out. You don't need to sit there for an hour going, what am I going to write? What am I going to do? This is a blank page. It just doesn't work that way. And the more creatives I speak to, the more I see that they work in pockets. They don't go in and spend, a whole day designing a dress and cutting it out and sewing it together and putting on the sequins. I say sequins a lot. I don't know why. So it's the same sort of thing. And you're not going to see a painter necessarily go in and, you know, figure out what they're working on, sketch out the whole piece, paint the whole thing, spray on the, whatever, if they're spraying some sort of a protective coat over it, they're not going to do it all at once. They're going to break it down into increments that work for them. So make sure that it's working for you. You don't want to do something that isn't working for you. I know personally, I do my best work if I can just take an hour and sit down and have, the silence of like a tomb around me and just sit down and do my work and get my stuff out and then go, done. It's all out. And I feel like so much better. I can just breathe a big sigh of relief and go about my day. So make sure you don't continue to put things off, because a lot of people will put stuff off because they feel like they need like the right amount of time to sit down and write. You can write in a half hour. If you have 5 hours and that's your thing and you like to luxuriate in your creative space, do it. You don't need that though, unless that's your thing. Be flexible with it and listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your brain, listen. Um, all right. The last rule is you don't need to pause to do research. It disrupts your flow. This is for the people who feel locked into that whole I have to be perfect and I have to write perfectly, and every word that I use, every word that I choose has to be the word that I keep, because I'm committed to this manuscript and I'm going to, marry it, sign a blood oath, whatever it is that you have in the back of your head. Um, Really, if you don't know what it is that's driving you to do that, kind of dig a little bit and get into it, because it can be some fun stuff. We have a lot of weird crap in our heads, and one of these things is that you need to get every single word perfect. Um, I used to be a perfectionist myself. I like to think that my kids have helped me with that, because you really can't be a perfectionist and have two small children running through your house like a circus. It's a little messy, it's a little slimy, it's a little wet and kissy. And yeah, we can talk about that another time. But, pausing to do research in the middle of your work because you feel like you have to have the perfect word or you have to have the perfect phrase, or you forgot a word and you need to research what it is, that just disrupts your flow. So, one of the best tricks that I can recommend is to just write down what you kind of think it is. So if you're like, what is the word for, when the sun's shining through the window just right? There's got to be a word for that. Put it in brackets and highlight it in yellow. The sun's shining through the window just right. Brackets, highlight in yellow, keep writing, keep going. And then take time, like when you're burnt out on that creativity at the end, you can go, okay, it's time to go back and research it. Or, maybe you're writing about some sort of medical thing and you're like, oh my God, what is the word for a stab wound to the lungs? What is that word? Oh my God. You write out stab wound to the lungs and you can do your research later. And that word is pneumothorax. And I know that, and I use that as an example because that popped into my head one time and I was racking my brain, driving myself nuts about it. And when I had a chance, I asked somebody about it. Pneumothorax. So if this is what happens to you, if you go off on that tangent, you're distracting yourself from where you need to be. You're preventing your flow. Remember those two things, because preventing your flow is the worst thing you can do to your writing. Always make sure that you are getting everything out, get it on your paper, on your computer, wherever it is that you do your work, and it's there to work with later. It's there to work with later. Permission to write a messy first draft, right? So if you have questions about this stuff, or if you feel like these are the kind of things that you get stuck in, tell me in the comments. Tell me what your big thing is that you get stuck in, or you can ask me too. Ask me questions. I love helping people out. If there's something else that you feel like, hey, this is keeping me from writing, Corey, what do you think? Please tell me in the comments and I will help you out. If you're watching the replay, just hashtag it replay. I'll make sure I get back to you. Um, but it was great seeing everybody this afternoon, and I hope you have a beautiful sunny day, just like we do here in Pittsburgh for once in the middle of winter.